Now here's a neat find. Woodpecker has been at work. It's probably a pillar over there.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Birding with Bob in Anoka County Parks. I'm Martha Weaver with Anoka County, and we're joined by Bob Holtz, who's one of our adult education specialists, and he's a naturalist and a bird expert. So we go to Bob to learn the latest and greatest information about the species that we see moving through Minnesota at all different times of the year. And today we're going to be talking about thrushes, and you might think, I don't know a lot about thrushes, but actually they're some of the most common that you see. Talk a little bit about the uniqueness, though, of thrushes.
What's unique about thrushes, or I should say, actually, it's a good question to start the conversation about thrushes. If you know Minnesota thrushes, general body shape and size, you can go to other parts of the world, see a new bird, one you haven't even seen in a book.
Yeah.
And it says to you, thrush.
Really?
I just have had that experience several times, and I just got back from Ecuador a couple weeks ago. And we got there in the dark of the night. Next morning, I tend to be an early riser, so I was up before breakfast, and I go out and start looking around. First bird I see, bang, it says thrush.
Okay.
I go to the field guide, there it was.
Huh.
Just had to know what section to look at.
So what are those clues that you look for, Bob?
If you know what a robin looks like, you're on your way.
You're halfway there.
Yeah, it's a certain shape of the body. Thrushes also tend to have large eyes and a slender bill, and those clues jump out at you. In addition, in Minnesota, if you're looking for thrushes, look for spotted breasts on a bird.
Okay.
Although robins and bluebirds, which both belong to that family, the adults don't have the spotted breasts.
Right.
But if you think about it, when you see young ones, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the good clue on that.
And they also have wonderful voices.
Yes, they are good singers. They eat a variety of foods, which isn't a good clue, but some people think they're a little specialized, but that's not always true.
And they don't eat just, people always think with robins and worms, it's not just worms that they're eating.
No, no.
Talk a little bit more about some of Minnesota's thrushes.
Well, let's spend a little more time with the robin, our common thrush. It's probably the most common bird we see along with red-winged blackbirds. I mean, I think everybody has seen both of those. And as you said, they don't eat just worms. They eat insects, little snails, fruit, and so on. If you're a robin, you might even stay in Minnesota in the wintertime. And as we know, they're not eating worms then, And you can distinguish males from females, too. The male has a dark black head. Female's head is more of a dark gray. The breast on a male is a bright brick red, and the female is of a paler version of that.
Okay.
See? Yep.
How about thrushes that actually don't have the word thrush in their name? Other ones?
Yeah, I'm going to describe 6 more thrushes, and 3 of those will fall in that category.
Okay.
So 4 out of the 7 we're talking about today don't have the word thrush in their name. Eastern bluebird would be an example. 30, 40 years ago, they were hard to find. They were just going downhill.
Was that because of pesticides?
Possibly a little, but the main thing was we don't let trees sit and rot anymore, and they were cavity nesters.
Okay.
So people discovered, hey, we could build nest boxes for them, and this will help them, and it really has. So you drive out in the rural areas now, in the metro area, and you shouldn't have any trouble finding bluebirds.
And well, why do we see a lot of times when you do drive out, you see 2 of them right next to each other?
Yeah, we usually put 2 boxes 25 to 50, 75 feet apart. People have different opinions on how far they should be. But the idea is, well, first of all, the reality is other birds like those boxes also.
Okay.
Tree swallows, house wrens, chickadees, we'll use them, even house sparrows. If, let's say, tree swallows come first and grab one of those boxes as their own, that second box, being close, is going to be in the tree swallow's territory.
Okay.
And the one thing they don't want in their territory is other tree swallows.
Okay.
So they tend to drive them away. That doesn't always happen, but they tend to do that.
Okay.
And that would mean it's still available for the bluebirds that might come along next. So that's why you see so many of those.
You hear a lot of times that people confuse bluebirds and blue jays, but there's a big difference
There's
in
a
those
big
birds.
difference, yeah. Bluebirds are only maybe 6.5 inches in size, and blue jays are almost twice that size. In addition, blue jays are colored differently. They have some blue, gray with white spots in them, whereas the bluebirds, the male has a dark blue head and back and a brick red breast, and the female's colored in the same manner, but in a much paler version.
Okay. Okay. How about thrushes that are as small as bluebirds? Are there?
No, that's about the smallest thrush that we have. A little bit bigger would be like the Hermit Thrush. It's about an inch bigger, 7.5 inches. Got a brown head, back, and wings, but the outer edges of the wings and the tail are a reddish brown,
Oh.
kind of strikingly so. And the breasts are spotted, and they have a white eye ring. And they are basically our earliest thrush that comes back after the robins and bluebirds do.
There's a clue that you know you're looking at a hermit thrush. Tell me
Right.
about that.
If he sits there and raises his tail up and then drops it slowly, once or twice, that's hermit thrush.
Okay.
A number of birds have different habits that really help you identify them.
How about listening for them?
Excellent singers, but basically they don't sing until they get to their breeding territory, and they don't breed here in the metro area.
Okay.
Yeah. A bird close to it in size and color, and often confused with, is the Swains Thrush. Swains Thrush has a buffy eye ring rather than a whitish one, and it has buffy cheeks, and they don't have the reddish brown color in their wings and tail like the Hermit Thrush does.
Okay.
And they don't lower and raise their tail like they do. So there's several differences. But then there's the gray-cheeked thrush, which is also very similar to the Swainsons, and they get confused also. But in the Swainsons, the eye ring is not as distinct. They have that buffy color in their cheeks. Remember, it's called the gray-cheeked thrush.
Right.
And it has slightly pinkish tinge to its lower mandible, but not always easy to see.
Well, are they all so similar and so hard to distinguish?
Those three are. They're
Okay.
the hard ones. Other than that, our thrushes are pretty easy to identify, but you have to work carefully through those three. Yeah. And they sing differently, but again, both Swainsons and hermits go farther north before they do much of their singing.
How long do they spend much time in this area, or they just pass through and keep going? How far north are they going?
They go up into northern Minnesota.
Okay.
But they spend some time here because the reality is that one comes along and spends a little time here and moves on, but there's others still coming. They don't all migrate at the very same time. Yeah. So then there's a bird without the word thrush again in its name, is the veery, V-E-E-R-Y.
Okay.
You can hear those sing because they nest in the area, so that helps. But it's a uniformly reddish-brown color, head, back, and tail. And the spotting on the breast is less obvious than on those other thrushes. And when you hear them sing, you'll definitely know that it's a veery. Some of them will nest in areas so you can hear it, but it sounds like they're whistling in a tunnel or a big culvert. you
Okay.
know. And it's a spiraling down that it goes, yeah. I remember the first time I heard that as a young guy, I said, boy, that sounds like somebody's whistling in a culvert. Went to look at Peterson's Field Guide, and that's exactly
How they described
what he
it.
had described it, yeah. Then we have one last thrush, the wood thrush. Beautiful flute-like song, a lot like the hermit thrush, but you can't compare them very well in this area. Few wood thrushes will nest here, so you might hear them, but you're not too likely to hear the hermit thrush. The spotting on the breast and belly of the wood thrush is very distinct.
Oh,
So it really makes it easy to identify.
finally one that's easy to pick out.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard. And if people want to start getting into thrushes and don't have too much knowledge of them, look for the bluebirds and robins and get familiar with those. You can find bluebirds in the metro area if you just get out in the countryside.
Get out of town a little bit. Get
Little
out
bit.
on those rural country roads.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Bob, so much for your time. teaching us a little bit about thrushes here on our Birding with Bob podcast.